Everyone can please rise for a quick moment of silence. And a pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Janine, can I get a roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Here.
Mrs. King?
Here.
Mr. Herner?
Here.
Mr. American?
Here.
Mr. Schuler?
Here.
Mr. Borbeck?
Here.
Mayor O'Brien?
Here. I'm going to read the Statement of Compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Pursuant to the requirement of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, notice of this meeting was included in the annual meeting notice filed in the office of the Borough Clerk, posted on the Borough website and on the bulletin board in the municipal building, published as a legal notice in the Co-Star newspaper and mailed to those requesting notice and providing payment in accordance with borough policy. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
Roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passes.
We have several meeting minutes to approve, and we're going to take each one individually. The first one are the executive session minutes for July 11th, 2016 meeting. We get a motion to approve those
I'll
minutes.
make that motion. Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Abstain.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next meeting minutes to approve are the executive session minutes for the July 27th, 2016 meeting.
July 25th.
25th? Did I skip over that
Did
one?
I say that wrong? Did I type?
It says 27th in the packet, sorry.
Does it?
25th.
It's actually the 25th. I will correct that on the minutes before I log them.
So can we get a motion
I'll
to
make
approve
that
those
motion.
minutes with that correction?
Thank you.
Did we get a first?
second.
Okay.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Abstain.
Thank you.
Next are the August 15th, 2016 regular session minutes. Right? Yeah. We have executive session first, actually, right? We do a
We
separate-
don't have those minutes tonight.
Okay, just the
Just the
executive-
regular session.
just the regular session, okay. Can I get a motion
I'll
for
make
that?
that motion.
Second.
Mr. Campion?
Abstain.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borbeck?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And those are all the minutes that we have to approve, right?
Yes.
Next we have a presentation by Paul Damiano for the community center improvements. Paul, you are up.
I'm here just by way of preface. You will recall that Mr. Damiano was engaged by the borough to provide architectural services related to the planned improvements to the community center. The borough is the recipient of a $156,000 grant from the Community Development Block Grant Program. For those improvements, Mr. Damiano was here in late June, early July, and had presented a preliminary scope of work as well as plans. Based on the comments that the council provided, as well as the public provided at the time, Mr. Damiano has made some changes to the plans to incorporate those the requested items of change. You all set?
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Subsequent to the last meeting, we had a committee meeting. We came up with a punch list of sort of changes or what we took from the last public meeting, and what it sounded like to us was there was more of a desire to upgrade the existing structure. Make sure we had working kitchen facilities where you're able to cook and have that fire suppression hood. And maybe it wasn't so critical to have maybe 2 new spaces. It sounded like a 1 new space was fine. So what we did was we sort of focused on looking for ways to sort of pay for the kitchen and more upgrades and pull back on the addition plug. So what we wound up doing is instead of really putting in any money to sort of reconfiguring the stage area to store the tables and chairs, and we just said, okay, well, we can store the tables and chairs in the addition. And the first thing we did is reduce the area of the addition. So we pulled it back 6 inches. We took 75 square feet out of there, and that's something that is a significant savings. Then we looked at not having to reconfigure this space, the stage area, and have the storage area back here, and just have the multi-purpose room be still where it was. But we took out all the closets because there was some discussion about, well, who really needs to store things in the closet. And we looked to simplify the kitchen. We took out the double door and took out a lot of cabinets and just had the 2 openings, the one sort of serving area towards the multi-purpose room, and the larger area, again, focusing on counter space and openings and minimizing the cabinets that are along one end. We still have a refrigerator, a couple of cabinets, and a cooktop with a hood. Having the cooking facilities with the fire suppression in the hood. We also need from health code the 3-bowl sink, to wash, rinse, and dry, and have a piece out here. So we've got that 3-bowl sink where we could fit it over here. We're still addressing the barrier-free aspect of it by having a ramp to a barrier-free entrance. There is no janitor sink. A janitor sink is required by, again, the plumbing code. They don't want you washing the mops for the bathroom and the bathroom sink. They want you to have a separate sink for that. We still have the barrier-free renovations to the existing bathroom. Again, the bathrooms are single stall, where the occupancy requires really 2 fixtures each side, and the fixtures aren't barrier-free out there. There's required spaces at the fixtures to get in, to get out. If you're really in a wheelchair, you need maneuverable space to really use those bathrooms. We have a drinking fountain. Again, drinking facilities are required by code. So we took the scope as what's new now. We're going to have the new wood flooring throughout, including the stage and redoing the stage. Taking that wood flooring throughout the addition as well. And we were going to, upgrade the light fixtures, change out the ceiling, and repaint the existing multi-purpose room, as well as, fix, patch, and restain the paneling. So in the scope that we looked at balance, that's basically how we looked to balance the comments of what was said in the meeting. But the generator is still part of that scope. Again, there was, I guess there's always, obviously there's concern about the budget, and the idea in terms of the bidding process is to have, it's a series of alternates in terms of, do we provide the kitchen cabinets now or later? I mean, there's certain things you have to do, but we did get, some line items, some other things we did were we took out the folding door. That was kind of a major item. We changed it to a pocket door. When we priced out that folding door, it was fairly expensive. And we still remain, to have the upgrades. A couple that I didn't mention is there is no, once you took the stair out of the basement, there became no emergency exit other than that one exit from the basement. So we still want to put in that exit in case somebody is trapped by fire up here. They have another place to get out, which is really just a hole in the floor to jump out and jump out the side. What was the other? Oh, talk about the generator. Is that it? Okay. So I think that's
There is a janitor. Somebody said there wasn't a janitor. There is a janitor's closet in the new.
we're proposing a generator.
Yeah, we're proposing.
Yeah, there isn't
Yeah.
one now.
Yeah.
At this point, we're talking about the ramp.
Oh, the last thing that I was trying to remember is also trying to when we refinished the wood here, we were talking about putting a real gate there and refinishing the stair so that it's solid. When you saw it, when you looked at it, it was going to put wood surfacing over it, so it all looked the same and blended in. So again, that was the last item I was trying to remember about tying it.
But instead of a gate, you're talking about like a Dutch door bottom up.
Like the bottom half to match the panel, so
Yeah.
something that was more permanently fixed, so it doesn't have that piece of plastic that just keeps falling.
In addition to the janitor's cottage, you're proposing, the ramp's going to be in the same spot, or not?
Well, the ramp would still, we need a certain distance to come up, so the ramp would be here from to enter, so that would be the barrier-free entrance.
Thanks.
Again, we were looking to reuse the existing door,
Yeah, makes sense.
anything that we could do.
Thanks.
All these requirements that you're talking about, the plumbing requirements and the accessibility requirements, the bathroom requirements, none of those are necessary if we don't add on to this building, correct?
They're necessary if you renovate the building
Renovate
up to
the,
20%. Yeah.
okay.
So 20% of the renovation minimum needs to be, the first thing to look at is towards the barrier-free upgrades.
So if we were to do the floor, put in a generator, spruce up the kitchen,
Would that exceed
Would that be
Well-
20%? That's, I think, the question, right?
yeah,
Exceed 20%. No, whatever you spend, at least 20% of it has to be towards the barrier-free upgrade.
okay.
So you spend.
So, and you're
Do
trying
we
to see
meet
for those.
ADA requirements as it stands now? Let's start there. For the number of people that are in that building.
I mean, you don't meet code for current, you don't meet current code, but you're grandfathered in, whatever you've got.
I'm not saying- yeah.
Remain.
But if we were to do it over again, what they're saying basically is, it's insufficient right now. If it were to be built today, you couldn't build something like what we have. This is there because it was built, was renovated in the 60s. The last major renovation was in the 60s, besides the bathrooms we redid, but it's still the same configuration that's been there as long as I can.
You see,
And
the
that's why it's
the
there.
bathrooms are fairly new. The bathrooms are they're not very old
Well, but the
at all.
configuration is basically the same. We didn't bring it up to code for ADA requirements.
I understand that, but what I'm
We just
saying,
put ceramic tile on it.
yeah, but what I'm saying is, I was to believe when we had this last discussion, and again, maybe I didn't understand it clear, but when you made your last presentation, I thought that if we did not do all these renovations and extend the, size of the building, that we were okay by code the way everything was,
Not,
because we're grandfathered in.
no, I don't think we talked about not doing any additions, but in terms of if you do, I don't know if you got a permit or if some of the work ever got a permit, but basically there are minimum code requirements for any renovation based on the use. So you would look at, there's basically a punch list of uses, and it's mostly if you touch that space, then you have to bring it up to code as best you can, is how it reads, other than there's another section that says if you need to spend a minimum of 20% of whatever you're upgrading on barrier-free requirements to get people to do that. So let's say you're spending $100,000 on renovations. The building department will generally ask, where's the 20% towards the barrier-free upgrade? Well, it's to the ramp, it's to the bathrooms, and that answers that question. So that's.
But the other concern with putting this addition on is parking. Because now you're enlarging the building and you're required to put so many parking spaces in. Where are we going to put the
Can I
parking
ask,
spaces?
pre and post, what is the change in occupant load? Pre-construction and post-construction, what are the occupant loads?
The parking spaces is a zoning, so that's something that's up to Spring Lake Heights. That is not a building code requirement, that is a zoning requirement. So the first floor occupancy, existing, we were saying was 110 by code, we were going to add 78. So we're going from 110 to, let's call it 190, 192.
So 110 to 192? So we're adding 82 potential occupants on the first floor
That's
as a
really,
limit.
that's how they do it for the building code. They really do that occupancy to determine the size of the doors, how many plumbing fixtures. I think there's something posted already there that says,
200,
yeah, 200 max.
200 standing,
occupancy.
without tables and chairs, it's 200.
Now, you would have to talk to Bart or somebody about how it's, how many people are really maxing out there right now.
Well, there's two components of it. There's the fire code side and then there's the construction code side. So the construction code side is usually, the construction code side tends to be more conservative than the fire code side because it's, as you said, for the doors and everything else, or saying that inverse. But my other question is, for the construction on this, what do you have for a budget right now? You said you priced out doors. Do you have an overall budget for what you have right there?
We had previously submitted a budget. We were, we were in the $350,000 to $400,000 range.
And where we cut down since that first one, we added the kitchen element, which was an expensive upgrade because of the hood.
Which, the kitchen and adding in the fire suppression system depends on what we put in there for appliances. So if we don't put appliances in, you're not required to have a hood, correct?
Correct, it's the cooking. It's,
Okay.
will it generate grease? Or
Because I heard something before, and I'll say it out there, and if you disagree with me, I apologize, but I heard the word grandfather. And when I hear grandfather, when we're talking about ADA and we're talking about code requirements and accessibility, I hear cop out. I don't think, and the young lady in the middle here in a wheelchair, do you care that you can't get in because it was okay because we didn't change a certain percentage? Does that make you feel better?
I think it's a discrepancy.
Okay, so my opinion is the renovation of the bathrooms to make them accessible is way high on my priority.
I would agree. I mean, if we're going to do something, we have to be inclusive for everybody.
The question is it barrier free?
Well, it's
I
not
guess-
fair for now. My question go back. Is the one enough? I can't believe that one toilet or urinal per sex is enough for the capacity that you're talking about wanting to do.
Or even for the capacity that currently existed.
But I think my follow-up question
And
is,
just, can I just,
I'm sorry.
a point of order, just to give everybody sort of an update where we're going to go with this. I think basically what I'm going to let it happen here is that the council is going to make their comments. It's not on the agenda. It's just on the agenda as presentations, but it doesn't make any sense to wait to the voice of the public for you to have your voice about this. Then I'll invite the public up to have their opinion about this. But first, we're going to ask questions and speak, and then you'll get your chance. Just so you know. Okay? Go ahead.
I guess my question is, we're doing this project and we're looking at this, and I've heard substantial things. I heard fire suppression system for having a cooking area in there, which if I go to the emergency stuff and we look at what we use this for during Sandy, for a warming station, for a charging station, to me, generators high on the list. The kitchen is a great asset to have, obviously accessibility to the bathrooms, but what is the purpose of this renovation? I've said in my, however long I've been sitting up here, and I used to count by months, but I don't anymore, but we should be solving problems, not creating them. And the fact that we have a grant for $156K, and we have an estimate of $350 to $400K, which, let's face it, it's a government project, so that's probably closer to $500,000, maybe $550, because that's the way things happen. I'm just going to be black and white on it. Has anybody ever seen a government project come in on budget? It doesn't. That's just the way it works. I don't know why. I wish I knew an answer. I could write books, make a whole lot of money.
It was a $250,000 budget when we first started talking.
That's right. So I guess my point is, we have the $156,000 grant. I know that we can spend more on top of it, whether we have to or not, I don't know, but our budget and our dreams should not dictate what we do. We should be looking at what problems are we trying to solve. The floor to me is an issue. It's a 100-year-old floor. There's soft spots on it. We know it creaks. We know there's an issue. Nobody will argue about the floor. Accessibility to the bathrooms, I think we're all in agreement that we should be doing what needs to be done for our residents to have access to the facilities there. I kind of feel like we need to start looking at what's important that we're trying to solve here for the problem and start coming up with answers instead of starting with a wish list and whittling back so it gets so convoluted. And I made this statement before, and it's one of my favorite phrases, is that a camel is a horse designed by committee. You get people in, we start throwing ideas, and all this ridiculous stuff gets thrown on top, and I want to see this focused on what's best for the community and what we need in this, and not because we have a grant, so how much other stuff can get away with. So I'll stop there, but that's my feeling on this. I know I've missed a couple meetings and some discussions, but I think it kind of gives me an advantage on the outside looking in because I haven't been here for the discussions, but my initial impression, that's what I said.
I mean, I think you make a good point that I mean, from my standpoint, is that we have a building that needs some improvements done, that gets a lot of use by our community. I think, like, it's busy almost every weekend, there's lots of people that have First Communion parties, I mean, we use the building, and we're going to continue to use it, and it needs an upgrade. And as Art said, when we first started talking about this 5 years ago, it was a $250,000 project for exactly what we're seeing up there. So the sooner, it needs to be done, we have the money now, I think it should be done, but you absolutely make a point, what is it that we need? And let's, consider the cost of anything that's sort of a wish list item is beyond that.
I wanted to ask Paul one question. When we talk about breaking it out into bid and having the ability to do certain items, you would mention the generator, how far into this can we whittle down the bid without it making the bid process inflated because we're giving too many options to do a loan instead of as a package? Do you follow?
I think we wanted to keep it to 5, sort of 5.
Do you know which items you're in the area of? I know I've mentioned 3, the floor, the bathrooms, and the generator.
Those were, so those are the ones that are manipulable. I mean, now when you're doing an addition, you wind up doing the shell first. I mean, so the shell winds up getting, figuring a way to do the rest. So really, the shell becomes the first piece of it. And I think that shell is, is probably, 200.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Delaney, just tell me, how is this going to affect my taxes? We should go forward.
This project has been, well, let me walk through. As I mentioned earlier, we applied for a grant in the amount of $200,000. The way the Community Development Block Grant Program works at the county, it's a competitive process based on each municipality in the county submitting an application. Our application was approved and was funded with the amount of $156,700 or some odd amount. Actually, we were the last project funded, which is why we have an odd amount, because we basically, whatever was left over as part of the funding process, we were the last one funded. We have identified throughout this discussion that the funding, the non-grant funding for this improvement would be from the borough's Open Space Recreation Trust Fund. That's the 1 cent tax that is imposed each year and is dedicated for our open space recreation facilities. So in terms of when we talked about this as being a $300,000 or $350,000 project, we said there was $156,000 of grant funds and about $200,000 we would take in existing funds that had been generated from prior year open space tax. So there would be no tax impact as far as new tax dollars going into this. It's utilizing existing money that has been collected from property owners over the past few years. Each year, to put that into perspective, each year our open space fund generates approximately $115,000 to $120,000. So we're talking about roughly, 1.5 to 2 years worth of open space funding that's already in place, being supplemented with the grant.
Now, it was suggested that we don't take the grant, and that would not bring us under HUD requirements on free and open access to people for the use of it. What would that cost?
Well, as that question came up in our last meeting, I think the mayor did the quick calculation. In round numbers, the loss or the non-utilization of this $156,000 grant means that we would have to raise that from taxes. And that would translate into approximately 1.3 cent tax increase. On the average property assessed in Spring Lake Heights, the average residential property, it's about $62 one time.
Can I ask Jay, do we have to do anything?
No.
You said if we have to raise it from taxes, do we have to do any renovation of the community center at all?
No.
Okay. And just for clarification, because we keep saying there's no increase in taxes to do the work, I'm sorry, the open space money is tax money. It's money taken from our residents, mostly against their will, to go into open space, and we should be spending it as prudently as possible, being as thorough as we are in how we spend it. So the whole idea of you're not getting a tax
Well, I
increase.
think you made it clear that it was
Well, no,
money
my
that was
point was-
already raised from revenue. And
I said, what
I mean,
will
you
my
said
taxes
against-
increase next year if we should
Yeah.
do this, because that's already raised. It
Well,
was just
against
like the
your
money
will,
we
it was-
dedicated to the school, same thing, it was a tax, right? It's always been a tax, but it's there. And we use it for one thing or another, and if we use it for this use, then there will not be a tax increase. I just want to put the facts out there and decide, but we should deal with facts.
I mean, and if we're dealing with facts, then open space tax was not just pushed onto the residents, it was voted on by the residents and agreed that it was something that we should do. I mean, it was a referendum. So I would not call that against their will.
I don't really think that the residents, though, want this building to be open to anybody within Monmouth County or wherever. I think they want to keep it as their building utilized here in town. That's the way it's been for all these years.
I want to get back to Chris's point. If we don't do anything, the building deteriorates.
Well, that's why mayor and council 60 years ago put all that money into develop. This building is not the original building from the youth association. It was falling down, they had the foresight to go ahead and rebuild it and gave us our community center that we have and enjoyed all these years.
Right.
It's time, we have to do something.
But
We have to do something.
By
And
doing
either we're
nothing,
doing it,
we can argue about what we're
Right.
going to do, but we have to maintain the building.
Well, let me ask, maybe you know more than I do, aside from the floor, what's in dire straits? I don't see, I mean, are we doing,
well, it's
replacing
a
roofs?
100-year-old building. I think right now you have to replace the floor, and if we care about the barrier-free, you have to redo the bathrooms, which is not a small thing. And the generators is a good thing, but this does, it makes it work better. Right now, I've been hearing for 20 years how all the tables and chairs, you have to set them up, there's no place to put them, they take up floor space, and here, there's the room, you wanna put them in? Put them in.
If you've ever had to use the kitchen, you can see
Right.
the kitchen is in
Right.
serious need of an upgrade.
And if you want a little meeting, and there's exercise or whatever, now you have a meeting room. And you have a kitchen that's safe, with new electric, that you can work on, so there's not a fire hazard. So if you want something for the future on that small lot, this is, I think Paul gave us a great plan. This is it. If you don't want to do anything, we don't have to do that. We can do absolutely nothing. And just go in tomorrow and use it like always. How long can you continue to do that? Don't we deserve more? I tell you, the thing's used every day and every night, 7 days a week. All I know. And it's been doing that for 62 years I've been here. It's every day. This is an integral part of our community. We don't have a lot of nights. We have parks, we have a great school, and we got the community center.
Well, the other thing, and just in regards to the grant, yes, it does open it up to other people using it, but the way that the current usage is, that 5 days a week, 9 to 5, anybody who wants to use it, resident or not, can use it and sign up for classes as existing. Not to mention, there is, I mean, we can make it, the residents have the first right to get the space. So, and then charge more if non-residents use it. But I mean, as it is, non-residents are already using that space. They're just using residents as a means to register for it. I think that to throw $150,000 away on what might be 3 times a year, somebody out of town using the building is a waste of $150,000.
Avalon has
I mean, that's
the
my-
same situation, and they don't seem to have a problem. The pool's in Spring Lake, it's the same situation. So there's a lot of this around. You take federal funds, you can exclude people. But doesn't mean that they cut in front of residents. People have vested interest for years in this.
Does anybody else up on the dais have anything that they want to add?
You want to mention?
Before I open it to the public, sorry. go ahead.
Just the question has come up about the utilization of the CDBG funds. The Community Development Block Grant Program is a federally funded, locally administered grant program. In New Jersey and specifically in Monmouth County, Monmouth County acts as the lead agency and administers the federal funds that are available to us. So these are federal housing and urban development funds. A question was raised at a previous meeting as to the strings that are attached. And Mayor, you've alluded to it. We've asked the question about 8 different ways, and the answer comes back, and I quote, "If awarded CDBG funds, these public facilities must demonstrate they are open for use by the general public during all normal hours of operation. And I emphasize the normal hours of operation. Currently, the private, what I refer to as the private use of the facility for residents and under certain circumstances, non-residents, those are uses that are not during normal hours of operation. So there's that opening. Regardless of whether we accept these federal HUD funds, this is a public facility. It is subject to the non-discrimination uses and regulations. The acceptance of the HUD funds is an additional level of regulation, but our current operating procedures do not violate the HUD requirements, in my opinion. We've asked the attorney to review that as well. And again, there's always a scenario under which someone might argue that it is discriminatory, but I've used the example, this is not much different than a public facility, a municipality that accepts public funds for maintenance or development or purchase of a golf course. And it is not uncommon. In fact, it is almost, it is very common that any golf course has a resident and a non-resident rate. We've also explored the option of having such a structure that would have a different rate for residents versus non-residents. And again, the answer that comes back from HUD, they will not address a specific scenario. They simply say the regulations require that the facility be open and its uses be open for the general public during all normal operating hours.
And our rec programs already accept people from out of town. They always have.
That was my reference in before, the regular operations.
Right.
The classes that are held there.
So it seems like, based on our discussion here, we're kind of in agreement on, back to what I said before, the problems. I see the bathrooms that we've spoken about that need to be accessible, the floor, which, as Art has pointed out, is 100 years old, there's weak spots, needs to get done. The generator that I had mentioned, we need to have that there for a charging station, especially after Sandy. We learned that after burning up a bunch of portable generators. That was very clear. The kitchen area, which is going to include the janitor's closet and the storage area here, and then the conference room. So,
And the accessibility in the back.
but that seems like the 5 areas we were talking about.
Right.
I'm comfortable enough, since we're far enough down with Paul here in the drawings, to go out to bid, see the numbers come back on that, and make an educated decision. I mean, without budgets per item, I feel like it's all. Does it seem reasonable?
Right, it's reasonable to me. I mean,
I'm not hard pressed opposed to any aspect of this. I'm very concerned about the increase in occupant load. I'm concerned about the parking in the area. My question would be, is there's any way, even through the fire code side, that can be limited as part of this project, which is not unheard of to say, we would do it to anybody building any kind of restaurant or any kind of, we can limit their occupant use, right, by any number of zoning or some other application, is that correct? So we could impose our own restrictions on that if we were concerned, if we're up to.
We don't have to do the max, you're right, yeah.
We can do our own and say, okay, as part of this, to alleviate the parking concern, we're going to set our own max of whatever number we determine.
Right now it says
or leave
200.
or leave it where it is, that's right, so.
But it says 200 now in the building, so we're not even talking about it. What did you say, 178 or something?
Yeah.
192?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that many people in that building.
No,
That's
real close.
Yeah. So.
You see, you gotta remember, there's already a parking issue there because there are people that have to park out on the street when they have many functions there. And,
Well, it's like Spring Lake Town, right? It's
Yeah.
all on-street parking.
Yeah.
There is no off-street parking.
Yeah, but what I'm
So-
saying is if you increase the capacity of that building and you now have to have more parking and you can't, you're gonna have more people on the
No,
street.
I don't think it's
But the
unreasonable request to say, well, even though there may be more space, that doesn't mean that we have to increase the occupancy. I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
But we're really not adding a lot, technically square footage wise, but really we're only adding, there's 2 tables there with 2, 4, 6, there's 16 seats that he's adding in that conference room.
Paul, are we losing any parking? We're not losing any parking, right?
No,
The floor is the same, we're not expanding the
losing
hall
any.
at all.
We're not losing, no, wait a minute, are we losing?
Chris, I agree with you, if we can do this.
No?
If we can do this with, under our budget, which looks like about 356, I'm okay with that.
What Joe did was improve the parking lot by making it diagonal
Right.
as they flow in, which is gonna make it a lot less dangerous.
But I thought it was down one or two.
In that corner, when he says it, no.
Currently, it's not delineated, so you could say that the space was not delineated. So technically, no, but physically, yes. I know it's not a great answer, but.
All right, does anybody have any other comments before I open it up to?
Yeah, I just want to clarify one
Okay.
thing. Chris brought up something before about the word grandfather. I was the one who said it. I didn't mean to grandfather the building. I brought that up because that was mentioned at a previous meeting, that we could grandfather some things, and I have absolutely no issue with making this compliant with anything. I just brought it up because, like I said, it's an issue that was brought up in the past. So Chris not being here and missing a few meetings, hasn't been up, to date on that. So I just wanted to clarify my remark about grandfathering. I'm all for handicapped and improving a building and providing facilities for whatever the situation may be.
Is it really necessary to make this building that much bigger? Other than just renovating what exists there now?
See, I don't see how we're making it much bigger. The hall is the same exact size.
It's the cost.
Well, no, I'm saying, but we're upgrading. Don't forget, the kitchen that's already there is being torn off and we're putting it back, right? We're adding handicap access with the hallway and a storage area and that little meeting area off the kitchen. There's 2 tables there with 2, 4, 6, 8 seats at each one. The hall is still the hall. We're not doubling the size of the hall. I mean, technically, it could be a lot of increase in numbers, but realistically, it's not. It's essentially the same size with a little meeting area next to the new kitchen.
Yeah, but why
I
do
don't
we
see
have
that
to,
being
why
a-
do we have to do a new kitchen? Why can't we just gut the kitchen that we have and update it or use the cabinets and put in new appliances, and then if we
Well,
want to put on a room, which
Again,
I don't think is necessary.
so the new appliances, if we redo the kitchen, will we not still have to have a hood? Which is the money. We still have to upgrade it. We're not gonna have it unsafe. See, the reason they have a hood is because it's unsafe.
I understand all that, Art.
Well,
That-
but if you're gonna do the kitchen, then that means we're right back in the same spot we were
That's
before.
what it means.
With old electrical. It's worse than it was now. Let's say, right? Either you do it or you don't. That's all I'm saying. And if it's being safe, if it's removing barriers, then that's what it is. Or else, we don't have to do anything. And all grandfathering means is, we don't have to shut the building down. It's not meeting
Right.
requirements.
Right,
We're able to go on and on and on.
correct,
But knowing now, that's why codes change. Because we learn more.
sure.
We usually see disasters, and they upgrade the code, and which is why we have less fires.
But
now,
let me
because the code's
ask this
working.
question. What is the need for this conference room? Why can't, part of that area there, that open space area, why couldn't we have sliding doors come across so that it can break down into 2 rooms? Why do we have to add on?
Well, how would you get in it?
What do you mean, how would you get in it?
Well, it has sliding doors.
You slide it across the hall?
No, you mean across the hall.
Yeah,
Is what you're
how would
asking.
you- So how would you get from one side to the other? There's only a front door. And the back door into there? I don't understand. And they take the whole hall. The exercise class takes the entire hall. So you'd be constantly taking the barriers up and putting them down.
Well, like those bifold doors.
No, I know what you're saying. Yeah, I know what you're saying. But what I'm saying, then you have 2 small rooms, and now it doesn't work for either side. That's all I'm saying. And through the years, everyone's been asking to set up tables so they don't have to set them up. Because we had some senior, we used to have AARP come in, they can't lug those tables. So now they're gonna be already up. People want a little meeting, come in, beautification committee, whatever. Come in, set up the table, have your meeting. You don't have to lug the chairs, you don't have to drag the tables across the floor. It's already set up, that's where it started.
Yeah, because I think it's a common usage, just as it is to have a big party there, to have a smaller meeting. And the idea behind the meeting room is that you have the meeting room always set up for that size,
That
for a
was the
meeting of
plan.
16 and under
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, there you go.
So I think you're right, we do it or we don't, but I think, I'd like to hear from the public. 'cause,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, me too.
All right, so
What do you got to say?
if anybody has a comment that they would like to make, please approach the dais, state your name and your address and your opinion, and let's, please keep your comments on topic and polite. That's all I ask.
I'm Florence McCleary, 911 Jersey Avenue. Just as a way of background, we moved from Spring Lake Heights because we wanted a younger town. We wanted a more vital, some of you don't know, my husband was mayor and council from 1963 to 1976, and he ran on a platform of, I want what's good for Spring Lake Heights, and he always stuck with that. So I hope my comments will fit in. I don't know why we need a meeting room. There's a little conference room right there. This room exists, it's a public place. People could use it if they need it. I have never heard anybody wanting a separate conference room. Okay, you've all said the floor is a necessity, absolutely. If a generator is needed, could be very important. Perhaps updating the kitchen is very important. I don't know the expense in the restrooms, if we need it. But I would suggest you don't go for craziness. Dividing the room would not work well because they used to say, well, one room could go down the basement and we could have the main room. We would hear each other. I hate to tell you, but we would hear each other. And so they discontinued. I don't know what they do today, but a long time ago they stopped allowing that because it just didn't work out very well. Who is asking for a conference room?
Well, when they say conference room, it's just that little room next to it. For years, it goes back a long time, AARP and a lot of different meetings. Let's say the Democrats, the Republican Club, a beautification committee, anything with 10, 15 people, condos, such, whatever. If they want to come in, they don't want to set up tables in the middle of the thing and they go back.
in there?
Well, and the other thing was, if there was something else going on out there and they wanted to be here, it would be sealed off. And you know what else it is too? It's a great place too. If you were renting it for a party, you can put out your food and stuff in that cocktail area and set up your tables. It actually works better in a rental thing. And it really, that's not saving us a heck of a lot of money, just that room. It's just walls. There's 2 chairs there, 2 tables. You know what I mean? That's not really what money is.
For me,
Just I mean, for our own, to quantify that, is there a way to sort of say, well, if that room wasn't there, how much, and given that everything else in the plan really stayed without that room, I mean, I'm not, you may not have the answer tonight, but is there a way to get us that answer?
well, we've all managed.
That's all I'm asking.
We've all managed over the years by setting up some tables in the back of the room, having your food there. Whatever, it's for you guys to decide. I want to make one other point that maybe you're not sure of. My husband was in charge of parks and public buildings as a councilman. I remember when Jerry Larson designed the building, which was a school, the YA took it over, and they gave it to the town for the youth of Spring Lake Heights. And if you look on the deed, on the original deed, I think you will find that. And I hope you keep that in mind. It's for kids. It's what it's supposed to be for. I mean, I think some of the things we're talking about are a little pie in the sky.
So what you're saying is you would be very happy with that building, the size it is, but fixed up so that whatever needs to be done is done.
It needs a floor, without a bed, and I'm sure it needs other things. But I would be.
But as a resident, you'd be very happy with
As
just
a
that.
resident, I would be.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Nate Novak, 907 Keith Avenue. I want to applaud you guys. It was a really good discussion about the options, and you know, I really do think that it is something that we do need to do to improve the community center. I do have one question. So Jay mentioned that there was money that had been collected already through the open space tax. That money, would it currently have any other use right now besides being allotted to the community center
Sure,
remodel?
sure.
I mean, is there something else in line that is a better option to spend the money on
Yes.
if we have the money?
Frankly, I think that a better option is in the eye of the beholder, and I'll leave it to the governing body to set the priority as to what the current priority would be for the expenditure of those funds. Those funds, the Open Space Recreation Trust, are available for acquisition, maintenance, and development of property and facilities for recreation, conservation, open space. I know that entails a lot, but essentially in the past, those funds have been utilized and continue to be utilized for the acquisition of property, for the renovation and development of our recreation facilities. So we have Ocean Road Bicentennial Park, Joseph Robertson Park on O'Lear Road. In the past, that fund has been utilized for improvements to those facilities.
So, I mean, to answer that question from at least one governing body member's opinion, yes, those funds can be utilized for other recreation and open space needs. I mean, in my mind, this is, if not the top priority, one of the top priorities. I think it has a very quick turnaround to benefiting our seniors, our children, and any resident. So, I mean, that's the way I see it. And I think the sooner that we do it, the
Our
better.
goal is not to drain that money, to spend it. It's just, and this is before us,
Yeah.
so it's there to fund projects that have merit. And that's what we're here to determine tonight.
Yeah, so I mean,
Do we want to do it or not? Is it worth it to us or not?
I feel it's a project with merit. I mean, to not use $160,000 from the federal government to fund a project such as this. I mean, I would fund the project just for the ADA upgrades because, you know, I've personally wheeled someone in and out of those rooms and it's not easy. And that door is very heavy and you can easily, you know, be hit by it. So, I mean, just for that, I mean, it should be equal. Everyone should have equal access to it in that respect of accessibility. So, you know, we can be prudent with the upgrades. You know, we don't have to do everything. We can make it work. And, but I do feel it is essential. And especially if we're going to get those matching funds, to see them go to waste, I think would be a real detriment.
So Nate, in your opinion, as a resident, again, do you feel that the building needs to be larger or just kind of fix it up the way that it is?
Well, not larger in the sense of more occupancy in the main hall, like, you know, where they have parties or dances or a function, but to make the space more diverse and to have another general purpose area so you can have a larger event and then still have like a library meeting or a small meeting or, you know, something on a smaller scale, I think would be beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you.
While we're waiting, Tom, just to throw something in there, one of the things that helps wear the floor down is the constant rolling out of the tables and chairs. The idea of having room to put the tables and chairs in.
Yeah, I don't know if,
beneficial to the driving floor.
yeah, if you, Chris was just saying, one second, and we'll get your chance. Sorry, Chris was just saying that one of the things that does actually, in fact, wear the floors down is the fact that we constantly are dragging tables and chairs out there, just as a point.
Catherine on Central Avenue. I'm still not quite clear. If we take this federal money, and when you say grandfathered, do we have to do the upgrades anyway? Period, flat out. Like say if we just used our own money.
Well, like I said,
Do we have to
well,
do the
no,
upgrades?
just because you're using your own money, that one has nothing really to do with the other. It
Like
has to
with
do
the
with
hood in the kitchen,
it has to do the percentage of the improvement has to be dedicated to it, whether it's, if we're taking HUD money or not. HUD money has to do with accessibility and who can use it.
So in other words, if you spend $100 to make an upgrade, $20 is going to have to be for accessibility.
Okay. And then my other question is with the kitchen, like if we just kept it the way it is or just did a new stove, you have to get a hood? Is that the way it is? So, but what if you put another electric oven in? No, you don't need it.
Well, but everybody
No,
said they
if
didn't
you-
want that.
If any cooking produces grease-laden vapors, you must have a hood.
You said we
It's not a
needed a
matter of
flame.
type. If you can make grease,
No, I didn't say that. I said if we have a choice, I would have the gas, but if
Well-
you're gonna change it.
Well, the hood was an
And then the other
expensive
thing-
upgrade.
Artie, when we did those bathrooms, we did the sinks the right height.
Yeah, but no, it's turning radiuses. It really, that had very little, what you did was you put ADA appliances or fixtures into a non-compliant space. That's
Oh,
what,
so they're
the
saying the
space
whole
has to be
space of the whole
bigger to
room.
allow for more
Yes.
Because
things.
there are two in the men's room. There's the urinal and the toilet.
Yeah, he
Yeah, and I
said.
think the
he
plan
said-
actually continues with that, right? There's two,
But it's
with
still
two
not-
stalls in
See,
there.
here's the deal, unless you're in Elizabeth's situation, I don't notice any problem. I go in that bathroom, I have no problem at all. I've never wheeled in. And I listen, I talked to Elizabeth, and I've heard a few times she's commented to me how it is hard to get in and out of the bathrooms as they are right
The
now.
way
I have to believe her. So here's the deal. Whatever we do we want it barrier-free or not? Right? Well, no, forget who's paying for it right now. As Chris will say. Does it have value? Right? Because it could be questioned to say we've had projects in the past that really had less value. Maybe. But we had no problem spending all the money. So this is it. What do we want to achieve here?
You know, just, my thought is that we have the federal money, we have open space money. I want this to be tax neutral on citizens.
Yeah.
So my thinking right now is we've got about $356 if we add the two funds together. That's about where I want to be. So, you know, I don't want to raise taxes on myself. I don't want to raise taxes on myself
I would
either.
just like to say that, is this something where you cut out the conference, and 10 years from now, they're saying, well, why the hell didn't you do that why didn't we expand that when you had the chance? Why didn't you do it now? Because this literally maxes out this space.
is where the patio is. That's what you're
Yeah,
saying.
right, so you take away a patio, you're at it.
So you're just like moving that wall to the end.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're gonna have a hole
Where
there
the-
with a handicap ramp.
Where the kitchen is, the sink is now. That's gonna be pushed out also.
The kitchen's coming off, and it's gonna be a brand-new kitchen. In that space,
They're
right in
adding a
the-
janitor's closet, right? I think that's the.
That's on the other side of the
Yeah,
hall.
but to answer the mayor's question from before, we could make you want to know what it's going to look like, you kind of just chopping off a piece of the building.
Yeah.
And make the meeting room an alternate, you guys can see where.
I'm hearing multiple questions about that room, and I just want to understand. I mean, I'd like numbers when we talk about those things rather than just, it seems like a good idea. I want to know, how much does that good idea cost?
Well, and also,
That's all.
though, if you chop that off, what's that do to your handicap ramp? So now you'd have the handicap ramp going in the front of that open space, it's gonna serve what purpose?
Well, there still have to be a wall there or something to receive the railing, or it would just be open railing.
Yeah, but you're making a nook in there where you could put shrubs, I guess?
Personally, my opinion is that it's
Yeah, that's what
the
you have to do.
meeting space is a good idea. But I think it's our due diligence to understand how much does that good idea cost.
Yeah, that's a great place to put
That's
charging
one.
stations.
can I interject one more?
And the library closets, don't forget those.
For Jay on this, if we take the 200 to 250K out of the open space, what does that leave as a balance of that?
It would complete the current open space fund, which is replenished at the rate of about $120,000. It would essentially deplete it down to close to.
What does that do for the projects we've started at Allegro Park, the replanting and the buffer and all the other things that are on there?
Well, by next year, by next season, we'll be able to do that in the parking lot with next year's money.
Okay.
That's what I'm all worried. We're already getting numbers on the parking lot. The numbers aren't that great. We should have no problem. We can't do anything more as far as planning this year anyway. It's fall.
I just want to make sure it recoups in a reasonable time to continue
Yeah,
with the
I
process
agree.
we started and not
I
find out it's going to be
absolutely
3 years on hold for the sake of
I
this. That's the reason I asked.
About $15 a week.
Very good, thank you.
You started wheeling forward.
Elizabeth Stever, 66 Central Avenue. I think I could probably best address the ADA stuff. But remember, this wasn't a choice, and some of the people here seem to think that, you know, it's a choice, like, oh, I want the ADA bathroom. No, I need it. And I think that really gets lost in the, I mean, it's the law, it's the right thing to do. Any one of you can break your leg and be in need of a wheelchair at some point in your life. And trying to get into that bathroom at the community house is terrible. I was told it was made accessible. You go in, sure, the sink's low, but there's this tacky table in the bathroom which eliminates all of the radius. I've called and asked that it get removed, and was told, oh, but it looks pretty. And, I mean,
Who told you that? It just looks pretty, we can't make it accessible.
What,
Better
some
for you.
knows, when I called, there was somebody who used to answer the phone in Borough and said,
I mean, if we can solve your problem and take the table out,
I've
that's
asked
the way to
for
go.
years, I've asked for years. I mean, it's 90% more accessible just by doing that.
I'll make sure it gets done then.
I would appreciate that. But I think not everyone, but certainly people here are losing focus on, well, is it the law or is it the right thing to do? And it is the law and it is the right thing to do. And you're talking about dealing with the whole town. If you read any statistics, you know, the baby boomers are aging. I'm not the only person that needs it. And believe me, it wasn't my choice. And I think something that no one has addressed is, I've never been able to get into that kitchen. I mean, I don't know what the solution is, what the rules are, but nobody has thought about that. And I have an extra wheelchair that I will lend to anyone who wants to spend a day using it and go to different places in the borough. And I think there will be, at least from an ADA standpoint, a very different perspective on what needs to be done and what should be done. And I also, as far as the community house goes, I think it's wonderful. I know a woman just said that it's supposed to be, it was for children, it was for youth. But then she went on to say about enjoying different things there. I mean, maybe the primary focus is or was children, I really don't know. But it's a valuable asset that shouldn't just go to rack and ruin. And I think it's the time to make the upgrades, to make it for the next generation of people who would like to remain in this town. That's it.
Thank you. Eric, I know you've been looking like you were
Sure,
ready
but
to
edging up.
go. Come on up.
Just wanted everybody else to have a chance to speak. Eric Bennett, 93 Borough. A lot of great points. I wasn't able to be here for the last meeting in June, so I wasn't aware of it, for the presentation. So, it's quite obvious that the building needs upgrades. We walk around it, I do with my kids on it, and play on the playground. The building needs a lot of upgrades. The roofs are on the fall apart, the doors need to be replaced. The electrical obviously needs to be upgraded, the alarm system needs to be upgraded, all that stuff needs to be done. The bathrooms, the entire building needs to be ADA compliant for the residents in town that need that benefit of the building. Does the building need an addition? I don't think so. I live right across the street from it. The building gets a ton of use. Would an addition be beneficial in some circumstances? Yes. But as already been stated, there's not enough parking. Do we restrict the amount of people in the building to cut the parking down? Maybe. But I live across the street from the building. 80% of the groups that use it, there's not enough parking. The parking on
So
the
you
street.
see that parking lot fill all the time?
It fills up very quickly.
Okay.
I generally my summer salon so I can see it. So I can see how quickly the parking lot fills up, how slow people drive into it, creating traffic hazards on Ocean Road. Quite obvious that Ocean Road is a very heavily traveled road. There's on the past traffic study, the study that was done last year, it's a very heavily traveled road.
Yeah, we actually just did a study last month,
This month,
right? It was like, yeah, almost 6,000 cars.
there's one about last year that I'm sure, so it's similar numbers. That, and they put parked cars on this road, in July, 2 parked cars were hit. Just sitting there on the street. Because how busy that road is. No one could more cars on the street. There's not enough parking. There's nowhere to add parking.
Let me ask you something, you live across the street.
Yes.
Our children's park there, which I think is very nice, is that heavily used, is it medium? Do you see kids there all the time?
Depends on the time of day, because there's really no shading, and I believe that Mr. Knight is working on the grant for next, for that, replace that equipment for next year. Hopefully, if the grant doesn't come through, hopefully town will step it up and replace that equipment, because it's showing signs of age, and Mr. Barner, you know, more than by anybody else. We're throwing maintenance on it. That equipment's beyond, almost to be, one of beyond under repair. It is heavily used during the middle of the day, with the sea we've had. There's no kids out because there's no shade.
So as a resident, in your opinion, you wouldn't like to see that park moved and have that park made into parking spaces?
If that parking lot was a parking, you would have a lot of irate residents in this town.
Okay.
Me being one of them. My kids are young right now. They can walk right across the street, thanks to the crosswalk that was put in.
Yep. Okay.
Safely. The parking lot gets used a lot. Like I said, there's not enough parking, and with the 9th Avenue being a narrow street and major thoroughfare for residents.
But park's also for young kids too, which is kind of.
Where it's fenced in.
Yeah, it's fenced in.
It's fenced in, there's 2 gates, right, easy access. So, doing anything with that park to add parking doesn't make any sense.
It's not something you would want?
No.
Okay.
As long as they have a very lot of irate people, it's a community center gets used a lot. I mean, for different meetings, parties. My only issue is the amount of traffic that goes in and out. It creates a lot of traffic congestion in that area. The amount of noise that comes out of the community center for parties. There was parties in there, the DJs. I can feel the bass of my house across the street. I can hear the song, the music, the words being sung, because the window's closed. And that's going on now. If we want to run it out more, that's going to be a continued problem.
Well, that's the phone call. You call, because if it's too loud, that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I call, but at the same token, please have other things to worry about besides the DJ playing their music too loud at 8 o'clock at night. Very my kids can slip through pretty much anything, including the whistling.
You're a lucky parent for that.
Yeah. The only thing that goes is doghouse.
But it's getting into that stage.
It's never probably worse. It's just, there's a lot of noise now. I don't see it getting worse if it's community centers added onto to incorporate more rentals, more people, the noise is going to get worse. The parking's going to get worse. And it's heavily traveled right there now as it is going to create more problems. If it, in addition on all the other work, it's a no-brainer, it needs to get done. The building is now set, we should protect it and upgrade it, and physically it should be in service without having an addition put on the back or extra meeting space.
So if we add floor space to that, which would allow more people to be in there, the parking situation would get even worse.
It would get even worse, whether you increase the individual rentals or increase it to multiple rentals at the same time. It's going to compound.
What if we limited the number of occupants, below the
Well, it's by the space, right?
by the space, yeah, and
Oh, yeah?
that,
We can do that.
yeah, so.
And what's this that really, I don't know that it adds more people, it makes the
Yeah,
flow better with what you have now.
I'm not really concerned about the volume of people. I couldn't get to the last meeting where apparently this topic came up as far as renting out to multiple groups at the same time.
Yeah, no, we're not looking to fill this, we're not looking to go out advertising to come rent our place either. We're not in that business.
No, I guess what I'm saying is, not necessarily about that, but also that space can be used by a group, doesn't have to rent out the whole hall.
That's what I was thinking.
But if we could do that on a budget where we don't have to raise taxes, would you be okay with that extra room?
I would be okay with it if doesn't make things worse than they are now.
Yeah, I don't think.
If we
as far as-
don't increase
As far as
that.
noise, as far as traffic.
Right, so you have a group that's gonna use the conference room is one thing, and then they get their time, and then a group that, you know, yeah, we could do something
One or
like
the
that.
other.
But, yeah, not
Yeah.
both at the same time.
Right, so-
And on budget,
Running for a tax don't get raised, that's even.
right, that's what I'm
Trigger
saying.
person. Yeah, trigger person. I was just concerned about the size of the addition, right before there was a kitchen. I sold the Mark house, it's like, wow, that's kind of a big addition for a community center, that's, is it really needed, is it really justified for what we're trying to do for this town? But apparently the size of the addition's been cut back some, square footage wise, but does it still need to be that big? Maybe not. It needs to be looked at. It needs to be addressed.
Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. And just,
I'd like to point out, if he's got a noise level across the street, can you imagine what the noise level would be in that conference room you're talking about?
Yeah, you couldn't.
I think it's a good point that dual use in the same.
Party in a conference at the same time.
The other point I just want to make before you go ahead and come on up, Kath, is just that Councilman Merrick had mentioned, just asking the question about parking. He was just talking hypotheticals. I mean, if you look at what our future plans are, as was mentioned, we do have a grant in place to replace that playground equipment. It is not our intention, and has never been our intention, to put more parking in place for playground. Just so that much people don't come up and answer for that. Anyway, go ahead.
Cat Crippen, 564 Atlantic Avenue. I have a couple observations and a couple of questions. One observation being, if you're going to restrict the size of the groups that use the facility to what it is now, then why do you need more space? Why do you need another room? And as for dragging tables across the floor, the people who set up in the big room are still going to have to set up tables. So I'm hearing apples and oranges up here with the discussion that there will be, the solutions that you're proposing are not really solutions to problems. So
I think because, right now the space is used kind of there's two, I think, main uses for it, right? One is big parties, and two is meetings that are 16 people or less. And I think this gives you options as to which room you use to do it. One in which you don't have to set up tables for smaller groups, especially smaller groups of people that may not be able to set up tables. The tables would already be there. Again, there's certainly an open option whether it's worth the cost of that, but I do think that we're not talking apples and oranges. I think we're expanding your options as opposed to
I think the
saying
fact,
it couldn't all be done in one space. It is all done in one space now. It just
since 2008, I have missed 3 council meetings, and I never, ever heard anyone get up in this forum and complain and say they needed a bigger community house, they want a different room, they want to have 2 meetings going at the same time. I don't know where this idea came from.
I heard it many times as superintendent of Public Works. In fact, Public Works used to set up meetings for the AARP.
Maybe
Set the
somebody
table,
should
you said you never heard it.
I never did.
I have, that's all I'm saying.
Not-
We had to go
not
set up
in
tables
front
and
of
chairs for
government
senior
bodies.
groups.
Mr. Chairman, do I have the floor?
yeah. Why don't you go ahead and finish what you're going to have to say, and then if there's anything you want us to respond.
Well, and then I heard there needs to be 2 meeting rooms because then you can have 2 meetings going at the same time. But then I heard that, you can use the meeting room to set up your food to serve the party. And as Mrs. McCleary said, for infinity, since that building's been there, everybody set up food either right outside the kitchen or across the back and used the rolling bar. And I don't understand why that's suddenly a problem. And what are the normal hours of operation? We heard a legal opinion that the grant is only in effect during the normal hours of operation, but nobody said what are the hours of operation.
We can determine those down.
Well,
At present, the facility is used for our senior or adult recreation program daily from, I believe, 8:30 to approximately 12 noon. Thereafter, it is used sporadically, although on a regular basis, or I should say an intermittent basis, by the various community groups that meet either in the afternoon or predominantly at nighttime.
So what are the normal hours of operation?
I would say the normal hours of operation are 8:30 to 12 noon, because after that, there are small individual groups that are using it, or it is used for private parties on weekends and evening hours.
Okay. And then, Mr. Campion, you had a comment about the tax impact. There are other projects in town, I could give you a list of them that this money would be better spent for. And the tax impact is that if you use that open space money on a project that no one is clamoring to do, and in fact, a lot of people don't want, then that takes away from doing something that people do want. So that's the problem. And in all of this discussion of doing this, I have not yet heard the words asbestos removal. And when I was on council, I became aware of the fact that there is exposed asbestos, at least in the basement, probably in the ceiling of that. And I would think you need to get that reviewed before you go forward, because that's as big a hazard as anything.
That should be addressed immediately.
The asbestos is an environmental concern, and that does need to be addressed immediately, regardless of what you do with the rest of the building, because that's a problem. So, thank you.
Thank you. Gary, can I just ask you that, just as far as that question of normal operating hours, it seems to me that the HUD response to our questions about that were purposely vague, so that we had some leeway in defining what those operating hours were. I mean, legally, did you find that, what's your opinion on that?
I didn't listen to what the definition of normal business hours were under the HUD regulations.
Okay, so it may be that they defined that somewhere?
They are enormous, and I'm sure that we could find the definition of what normal business hours are.
Yeah, because, I mean, if they're either being purposely vague, or it is something that they predefined somewhere, right?
Can't we define that ourselves?
And then, that's what I'm saying. If it's vague on purpose, it's so that we can define it. If it's defined by them, then we need to know what it is.
I can tell what the definition is.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm Brenda, 1213 Pond Road. First, I guess since there's been so many questions, since I was actually on one or two of the committees when we originally talked about this, and we've discussed that the meeting room. Now, for instance, tomorrow night, I don't know if you wrote, but every Wednesday there's a Zumba Gold class in there from 5:30 to 6:30. We hold our meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. A lot of times the Zumba Gold class runs over, or they're still busy, they're using the main room to exercise in. So we have to wait until they finish, or I feel like I'm kind of pushing them out. Where if we had this back room, we could easily just come in there, the table would be set up, we wouldn't have to do anything. And I know I can think of numerous other times when there have been reasons why we would want a small room. Like when I come in for this meeting, I can't set up the table by myself. I have to wait for somebody else, at least one other person to come in and set it up. I have to go and we have to carry all the chairs over. It may not seem like a lot, but when you're busy in the evening and you have to run in and set all the chairs up and then take the table down, and it's plus,
How much of the main floor does that Zumba class use?
I don't know, I don't go to the class.
But you're there when you get there.
They're done, but they're there, they're still have all their things out. And the same even in the morning, like for instance, people might want to have a short meeting somewhere and they have exercise classes in there every morning of the week. I mean, it seems to me if we're doing this, we talked about it's been close to 50 years since anything has been done with that building. Not only is it the only building we have in town that can hold any of these things, but the chances of us ever building another building is very, very removed. So we have this one building, we have an opportunity, we have $160,000 to use to just say, well, we'll cut off that conference room. Well, it may not be absolutely necessary. If we have the opportunity, we have the space, we can't expand anymore. And like we were saying, it's not going to be the addition of 50 people. And by the way, you can limit the size because I know that the mill, the size of occupancy of the mill is limited. And So you can actually make it, we can impose a limitation, so you can say, couldn't have more than X number of people. So like you said, I don't think more than 20 people would use that, and in the front room, we're probably not talking about 100 people, we're talking about maybe an exercise class, plus the library, which now has to kind of hover over in the corner. They could have their things in there, and the people could come in and out all morning and use the library without having to go through the exercise. I mean, I just don't think it's, if we're really talking about it, I think it makes sense to do it. You can obviously eliminate it, but it just seems like at this point, after 50 years, looking at an opportunity to be able to change something that, there's 5,000 people in this town or close to it, that everyone uses at different times, or probably close to everyone. It's used, like I said, every day of the week, every evening of the week. It's rented, and we make money off it, I forget, it's rented out every weekend at least one day. You know, I don't see, and the kitchen is not really amenable to the type of activities that people who rent the building now use it for. I think this plan is much more effective for what we're renting the building out to people for. I think that's what I hear. And I think that we should, hopefully we'll consider it, and certainly at least consider looking at what everything costs, and then if you feel it's still not effective, then you can knock it out. But I really think that this is a time to look at all of these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen.
Just to put things in perspective, we're talking about for this room that's labeled as a conference room, I just saw the dimensions on here, roughly 17 by 22. If you were to count ceiling tiles and lay it out, it's kind of where that indent is coming off the main door up to about where our gentleman from the Co-Star is sitting in that little rectangle. So we're really not talking a ginormous room the size of we're in. We're talking that little area there, just to kind of keep it in perspective for everybody of what we're speaking of.
Good point.
Thanks, nice visual.
I looked at the dimensions and I'm trying to picture, I'm like, it's not all that big of a patio, so.
Is now eliminate any parking?
No, that was, yeah, we mentioned that earlier.
Basically, that extra space is going on where the patio used to be. And like I said, I'm watching the numbers carefully. I don't really want the taxes. I'm not interested in raising taxes. I have a number in my mind. And I think Eileen's point of just the building needs to get renovated. Let's see what it costs and see if it makes sense. Right? I mean, if it costs $500,000, like, well, maybe
That's when we can save money.
right. Maybe we should cut back, and if it, what I'm saying.
I think that's kind of what we're at. We keep talking like we're deciding tonight.
No, we're not
doing
deciding.
this. The end game is go out to bid, get it back in the pieces that we spoke of, and then we can have a discussion when we see real numbers.
And we want
I think
everybody
that's
back.
always a good place to be talking from when we're talking real dollars, yeah?
And we want everybody to come back and talk about it too.
So we can get bids on everything we talked about tonight in terms of what we do.
Yeah, well, not big.
I think somebody wants
Yeah.
to.
You're used to introducing, you're used to interrupting Councilman American, aren't you?
I have a question. Someone just brought up all these interior uses between the rooms, one thing going on, the meeting in another. Are you soundproofing that meeting room?
See,
So
can
people
I tell you?
can't hear, there's a gentleman talking about he can hear the noise across the street.
Right.
So I can't imagine this room functioning as a library unless you're going to make plans to soundproof it.
See, I don't see it, when they put the name conference on, I don't think you'd hold a conference in here. It's a tiny room, it just makes the flow better, and you can maybe serve the food in this room and have the tables out there.
No,
Gives you
I-
lots
I-
of more
I-
set up
I-
a table.
My question piggybacks on some of the
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
Rhode Island River, about having this room
It probably
that
is-
somebody could have a meeting while, the dance class was finishing up, or, and it's still kind of loud, or, a library. I mean, I personally, I think I'd like to sit and read a book in there and quiet, not while I'm Zooming.
Well, they have the library there.
Soundproofing.
The library's there, but it didn't seem to be going anywhere.
Probably,
So we just have to find out.
you know, some things will make sense, some things won't make sense.
Yeah, well, I'm just
Excuse me, could you please, not you, Rita, but everybody else, if you would just, if you've got something to say, please, reserve your comments for coming up, but let the people, let Rita speak by herself, please.
I was just trying to question it, you know, if you're talking about two things going on at the same time, with the meeting room, whatever you'd like to call it, be soundproof. I was just curious. I mean, I thought if you were going to
It's not
say
in the
that
plans,
this was
it's
a
not shown in the
benefit.
plans now.
What I'm saying is, if you're touting this as a benefit, that two things can go on at the same time, then it should actually serve the benefit you're touting as made to serve, which it should be soundproof, if the two events couldn't go on at the same time. It was just a question, not that it's
Yeah, no,
kind of
we don't-
merit, but I was just kind of curious because.
I don't think we're motivated to have two events at once. I think some people said you could, I guess. This is just for smaller venues. Rather than going into the big hall at all, just go right there, the tables are set up, that's all. It's really not that big.
Okay, well, you know, same thing, I guess I'm starting to get in the boat like that. Because you're talking apples and oranges, you're talking on one hand, we can do two things at once, and when people are saying, yeah, great, because then when someone asks a question, all of a sudden it turns back around that, no, it really wasn't meant for two things at once.
Well, it was never our intention to have two. I think we said
I think
that.
it has been mentioned, but yeah.
It has been
And so
mentioned,
that's
but
why I
not
was
by
curious,
us.
that's the
No.
only question I was asking.
Not from us, though.
Yeah, but I think,
So wouldn't
yeah.
there be, oh, all right,
Yeah.
okay.
But yeah, with the current plan does not include soundproofing because the original intention as is was just to give more flexibility to the open building, as opposed to really use two things at once. And I think even, I remember who spoke about, it was more of the ability to transition into one space while a group was still leaving as opposed to really having two things scheduled at once.
In fact, it had folding doors in the last plan. Now we just put regular doors on just to make it smaller. But it originally had folding doors. I mean, that's not.
Okay.
But I would also say, like, I think the question that we've already asked to our architect about, well, we need to quantify this particular space because we need, like, as I said, my opinion is good idea, but I want to know how much this good idea costs because, again, going back to some of the other points the audience members have made and the council have made that, look, yeah, if this comes in at $500,000, then we may need to figure out a way to spend, save money somewhere. And it sounds like if there's 5 priorities, that's number 5. At the very least.
Yeah,
Anyway.
well, I was just, I just was just wondering if that was part of the idea that
Yeah.
two things could go on at once themselves, so one party wasn't interrupted from the other party's
All right.
events. Okay.
Thank you.
I missed something before. Cat Curtain 564 Atlantic Avenue. On the drawing that was distributed for the audience members, it's a little difficult because the actual lot boundaries are not drawn in. But I do notice that the trash enclosure has now been moved away from the kitchen door all the way around to the western end of the building. And also on the front corner, the generator is now proposed to be in the front yard on the front corner of the building. There's not a lot of room between the community house and the neighbor to the west. How is that person going to feel about having people at 11 o'clock at night coming around to throw trash in there? And about having the generator running, wouldn't it make more sense to put the noise-producing items over on the side closer to the playgrounds because
In that
the
corner there.
playground won't be in use when those things are, and it would have less impact on the neighbors because you want to consider the quality of life of the people who live around there. People have already complained they can hear the parties going on. People come out on the sidewalks to smoke and drink and hang out in the night and make noise. You don't want to add another thing that's going to bother them. So you might want to consider moving those things back over.
Just an answer to your generator, if you look where the gas meter is, it's a function of where the natural gas is.
I understand. No, I understand. I just wanted to point it out. Thank you.
And you can include vegetation.
Yeah, because they make some enclosures on those and you can't hear them at all.
All right,
Stand right
is
next to
there anyone else who has a comment from the public before well, I never really officially opened this voice to the public, but before we move on to some of our other business. All right, thank you all. The next thing on our agenda, and just to recap, we're not voting on anything about this community center tonight. We are likely to go out to bid, and there will be further meetings on this once we get to bid. We're not going to just spend $500,000 without more public input.
We're just exploring the options.
Yeah.
We're just exploring the
Or
options.
any, now we're not going to spend $325,000.
It's going up to 100,000 just in this meeting. And not anything.
Sorry, I didn't put a good spin on it. Anyway,
There you go.
the next thing on our agenda, Jay has something to say.
To clarify, to provide a little bit of direction to us in terms of staff, we've made some notes based on what I view to be, or I interpret to be the consensus of the opinion. We will work with the architect to finalize the bid specifications, to provide a reasonable number of alternates, to provide the governing body with options once we do go to bid, so that we have the actual dollar numbers, so that there could be a fuller discussion on what the priorities are.
Does anybody disagree with that assessment?
Sounds great.
Good, that sounds great. All right, the next thing on our agenda is actually a scheduled public hearing. This scheduled public hearing is on ordinance number 2016-08, which is an ordinance amending section 7-3.3 entitled Parking Prohibited at All Times, and section 7.11b entitled Mid-Block Crosswalks of Chapter 7 Traffic. So specifically, this is in regards to, is that putting in crosswalks at mid-block, allowing that through, which is not allowed in our current ordinance, and I forget, the parking is that the parking over on Ocean Road? Yeah, okay.
And Mayor, if I may, specifically, this provides for what is known, the term of art is a mid-block crosswalk. It is not a crosswalk located at an intersection. This is specifically at the existing entrance at the Ocean Road, 56 Park, across Ocean Road. The parking restrictions are related. You referenced earlier this evening, a traffic study was performed, and one of the recommendations was that these two no parking areas be designated to improve the sight lines for the crosswalk.
Thank you. With that being said, can I get a motion to open that public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, or just do all in favor? Which one?
No, I'll do roll call.
Roll call then.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Sarver?
Yes.
So that being said, if you would like to come forward and speak on this specific ordinance, we are currently having that public hearing. Please approach the bench and speak to the chair. And state your name and address, well, as long as you're up there.
My name is Joe Walker. I'm a resident at 1205 Ocean Road. So I did not attend the last meeting. I didn't hear whatever the report was, but what is the intention or the benefit of the crosswalks?
It's for children to cross state. Did you see the one they just put at Ocean Road Park at the community center? That's not a mid-block, so we can just do that. Just have a pedestrian stop, so when any cars come up Ocean Road, they see someone standing in the pedestrian walkway, you have to stop and let them cross. Like on the long Ocean Avenue, it's the same thing.
To hopefully slow down the
I'm all for
5,500
that.
cars that come
Well,
down.
we have to
that
do an
road.
ordinance because it's in the mid-block. It goes in the middle of the block and you can't just do that. You need to
I
pass it.
get that. What are the ancillary indications that they are, is there signage in the street?
They just pull it at the community center.
Yeah.
Joe.
Quick overview, there's two types of crosswalks we're talking about. A is unsignalized, B mid-block. We have both. Because unsignalized means there's no stopping just on Ocean Road from the community center. Somebody driving east, just drives down the road, and they cross the street, has it right away, but once it's posted, most people don't recognize that. State law, you must stop pedestrian crosswalk. At that intersection, there is a 200 feet in advance of that, there's a warning sign that says the pedestrian symbol with, it says ahead, and then right at the 30 feet from the crosswalk, there's a stop bar, and then there's a stop bar, there's a a sign to remind people that you have to stop for pedestrian in the crosswalk. And then at the stop, at the crosswalk, there's also a sign with an arrow pointing down indicating that the pedestrian crossing is there. So on eastbound, there's 3 signs, and on westbound, there's 3 signs. There's 1 crosswalk and 2 stop bumps. And we'll be sitting in the exact same configuration at Ocean Road Park, where it's a mid-block. There's no street on the north side of Ocean Road where the crosswalk's going to. It's going right in front of residences.
Okay, I know right where it seems like where that crosswalk at the park is going in, there had been an electronic indicator of what people's speed was. I think it was vandalized.
They are moving.
And it was replaced,
Okay.
and I think then it was vandalized again, and it sat unrepaired, and I guess for whatever reason.
Those signs are moved to different areas of the town by the police department, and sometimes when they're not on, they're using them to record speed data on the road. So it may not be it was vandalized, it could have been moved up to Old Mill Road or over to a layer or wall and in service somewhere else. They have brackets for them, but they can relocate them throughout town to address situations.
Well, when I see cut wires hanging where there used to be wires connected, I kind of think it's vandalized.
Except those signs didn't have wires on them, they're battery-operated, self-contained units.
The signs still
The
there?
signs that are speed, the bracket is still there, but the signs themselves are fully contained with battery inside that they can be moved. The Patrolman Ramp can verify this, there are no wires, they're not fixed.
wires
it's
that
not
run across the
sold.
street?
They are not hardwired, so as the councilman stated, they are run through solar operation. They have a battery system that collects energy during solar time so that they can run at night.
That's great.
Why would you, back to your thing?
Yeah, so why would you remove that indicator?
Well, as the councilman said, they are not meant to be a permanent fixture. They are a temporary item which can be moved from location to location as either the residents or the chief or the department head feels there's a need. So the brackets themselves are a permanent fixture.
Well, I'll
but then they
give
get
you an example, like somebody on Ocean Road, we had a sign in one location, and then somebody said, well, you know, I'm a few blocks down, and they're really speeding over here. So they came and they talked to us, and we had it moved over to that area, just to remind people that, you know, they're children, so that's the idea.
It's a cost factor to put them on every major road.
It sounds great, and I'm thrilled to hear that it wasn't vandalized, that it was a conscious decision to do something, but so be it. So it's,
But a
so
byproduct
it's
is
essentially
pedestrian.
the chief of police's decision, or somebody whoever in the traffic department?
I assume we have a traffic.
It's as the need. It's wherever they feel there's a need. There's only so many of those
So if
detectors.
it's not there, they feel there's not a need.
Well, no, not that there's not a need, but they
there
feel
may
that
be a
there's
greater
a
need somewhere else.
greater
But
need.
why wouldn't, let me just ask a question, why wouldn't there be one there all the time?
Well, because we try to
Because we
balance
only
the
have so
budget
many,
with-
and we have to balance them throughout town.
Mayor, if I can also add, from a traffic point of view, people become accustomed to signs, okay? After a while, they ignore them. So that's another reason that police work with the signs, because they're there some weeks, then they think there might be enforcement action. After a while, people become oblivious to them. If it was there currently, it would have less and less and less effect. That's also a consideration. That's why police also move.
But the pedestrian crossings, like the one you did at Ocean Road, which was great, by the way. And now since we're used to seeing them, because in New Jersey, you step across one and you're running risk, right? And it took me a long time to get used to. I slow down to everyone going up the ocean front. And hopefully that'll happen on Ocean and Wall Road as well. When you see these pedestrian walks, you're looking for kids and you slow down and able to make sure there's no one standing there ready to come on. And hopefully have that effect as well as giving a safe passage.
So whose decision is it to actually relocate those?
The
Police department.
That's the police department. I'm talking about the actual walkway. That's
So
what the
within
ordinance
within the
is.
police department, does it come to the chief to actually make the decision?
Yeah.
To move it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Hello.
My name is Doreen Copeland. I live at 1220 Ocean Road. I think it's a really nice idea that they want to put the other walkway in Black Square. And I'm really happy they put the one in that's over by the playground. What I'm also hoping for is that there's a way to address, I live on the corner of Ocean Road and Old Mill very busy, and people travel very, very fast on that road. I've seen, an animal get hit out there. And I was wondering if there was maybe something they could do with a rumble strip or something, as you're coming off of 35 and approaching the intersection by Old Mill, the restaurant, and maybe a rumble strip coming towards that intersection. And as this gentleman said,
Just by way of introduction, that's.
yes, I'm sorry.
Which gentleman are you speaking of?
Well,
Jay Delaney in the white shirt is our borough administrator, and Joe May in the black shirt is our head of public works.
You said gentlemen, wasn't it?
So, I was just wondering if something could be done there, that it's not just, as this gentleman said, people become accustomed to signs.
Yeah.
But they won't, I think, be as accustomed to the rumble strip, like they would hear it and they would slow down. But even though they may not want to hear that again, as they're coming towards it, they will slow down.
Yeah, I think we're continually trying to improve the traffic, especially on that intersection. Just this past year, we painted that differently.
Yes.
In hopes that it would
appreciated
improve
that
traffic.
too.
But yeah, how far up actually to the west does our road, where does Ocean Road start for us?
We're west of,
Yeah, so not so far, right?
not very far.
Well, I think
There's
but-
considerations, rumble strips are a lot noisier than you think.
No, I know they are, and that's why
And
I'm
they get used to
I'm
those as
thinking
well.
that, but
They
I
were a
thought
fad
that
not
would
too long
help,
ago.
someplace in between. I think it's just, I think the other problem is, the other streets are all getting lights. And I think people now are looking at that road as being a thoroughfare between 35 and 71. So instead of them
People are gonna always look
choosing,
for the unsignalized
right,
intersection.
instead of choosing the other streets now where they have to wait, not even a minute for a light, they're just going to come down that road.
Yeah.
And, seeing that you're putting crosswalks, because people use that road frequently to cross over for the tennis court, or cross over because they're going to the community house, or cross over because it's a school walk. It's a lot of concern on that street that there are a lot of people during the day that are trying to cross over, and, unfortunately, somebody just may not realize that and come down the street just a little too fast and hurt someone. So, I'm concerned about it because I see an increase not only in the traffic, but in the speed that the people travel.
That is a tough intersection.
And sometimes they're very verbal at that corner. So, I used to like to sit out there and take a book. I don't even want to sit out there because it's a little bit too,
Too much interaction.
it's a lot going on, so that's what I have to say about it. And I do appreciate everything everyone does in town, because I think that Spring Lake Heights is a really nice place to live. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I can't go that way.
Karen Tunisi, 12 Central, crosswalks at Ocean Road and 9th are fantastic. My concern with the mid-walk crosswalk that's coming into place, I'm all for that, but the traffic that goes east, I feel, on Ocean Road picks up heavily as you go down that slope. And I know I've been tailgated plenty in my car with cars coming down. My big concern is if someone's coming off 35, trying to get back up to 71, I'm really hoping we could put that radar in place, or, I don't know, rumble strips, whatever you're thinking. But I feel like speed's going to be a big indicator for kids that are now trying to cross at that mid-crosswalk up at Ocean Road where the tennis courts are. So I think that's something that should be looked at.
I know I looked last year at the rumble strips on it, and a lot of the feedback I had from the towns that put them in densely populated areas, but they came out very quickly, especially if you look at our traffic study. Cars are up and down Ocean Road all night long. You feel the vibrations and you hear them very audible. So I'm curious, and I hate to put Officer Zach in the back on the spot, but do you have any opinion about the idea of a portable rumble strip that in conjunction with the sign can be put out? Do they exist? Is that
Well,
something you
then,
have
I would
experience
see
with?
if they have the speed bumps too.
Sure. So the question I'll answer first was, do they exist? And they do exist. And I think if there is a period of notification to those that are traveling the road by a temporary placement of rumble strips or some type of slow down device, followed by a targeted period of enforcement. And I mean, what I haven't heard anybody suggest is that we're not going to stop speeding until we take our own actions and become accountable for our own actions. And so part of my discussion tonight is going to include this targeted enforcement that we did and the results of that. If you'd like, I can discuss them now, or I can wait till the
Well, it's funny you say
I
that,
think
because
now-
one of the things I was going to say to you before when we were talking about this is, and I don't want to put any officer on the spot, but the feedback I have gotten from most of our excellent patrolmen is one of the #1 offenders are residents. And unfortunately, residents are our biggest issue with.
Sure. So I'll speak to that. I discussed 2 council meetings ago, that we were going to conduct a targeted enforcement campaign, which we did. We dedicated 160 hours, non-overtime hours, but our typical patrol time hours for speed enforcement, done on the several roads that we had received complaints about, and then other ones that we wanted to target, such as 10th Ave, Shore Road, Grieve Ave, Pitney Ave. So during this 160-hour period, there were a total of 140 summonses issued. And of those 140 summonses, 22 were speeding, and an additional 15 were for speed-related offenses, like careless driving or reckless driving. The fastest speed on radar that we were able to get was 53 miles an hour, and that was in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. And that was on Old Mill Road, and that was by a resident, which makes it very difficult to have both cooperation and people conforming with the speed, okay? 53 was the highest, and it was the highest by far. The typical speeds were in the 35 to 42 mile an hour range. So the 53 was an anomaly, I think. And again, this is with our cars, or either our SUV or our other patrol cars, in plain view, whether or not it was daytime or nighttime, as it was conducted on each shift, seemingly without regard for us even being there. So I can imagine that the residents have valid complaints, and they say there are speeders on the road. I have no doubt about it. And I think that we just see a very small microcosm of that during the hour or two that we're on Grieve Ave or Pitney or on Wall Road. And I would say that a majority of the people slow down when they see us, and then as soon as they get out of radar range, because that's a very finite distance, then they're speed increases. So if I happen to be in the 1200 block of Wall Road, once they get to the 800 block, they're back to their pre-seeing me speed. What's going to happen now is, now that the typical summer traffic has ended, now we're going to get a truer picture of the type of speeders that are in town. And unfortunately, I think that it's going to be consistent with what we've seen during the summertime, and that is a large number of speeders are our own residents, or those in the surrounding towns. And in my discussion with the speeders, and I look at their address and I say, okay, you live on Church Street in Spring Lake, and that's a 25 mile an hour zone. Can you imagine if somebody's doing 53 miles an hour on your street? Would you have a problem with that? You're right, I would have a problem with that. And they're all, to our face, they're very thankful that we're letting them know, and they all say they didn't realize and this and that. But at the end of the day, if our residents will continue to be cooperative with the speed on an increased basis, I think that they would, I think those who aren't speeding would see a decreased number of speeders. So that's what I have on that. And anything else?
Well, I guess the point was about temporary rumble strip or speed bumps. I know on...
Again, I mean, for a second, just to bring what we're actually talking about back into focus, it sounds like we think what we're doing with this particular ordinance is a good idea. It sounds like we have some work to do to address some of the other speeding concerns, especially on Wall, Pitney, Ocean, and maybe just given that, I don't know, it's 9:45, and we haven't gotten to the rest of the agenda, that maybe we finish up on this particular ordinance and, definitely say, look, this is something we need to work on. But just, that's just my thought.
Well, just to quick, because Mrs. Matunis had a good point, that people do, you know, they're going down the slope. So is it, and, you know, the Verizon store on 35, there's a street that goes east-west. There are some, it looks like plastic, speed bumps.
They're different than
Yes.
speed strips.
Well, whatever, I'm just saying, we should probably look at all of the above. We should start to consider this.
You've been up to Home Depot.
In addition to.
That's my point, clearly, this doesn't seem
That's what's gonna take, but it's not
but
possible.
this should
How many
not.
times did you hear on the tax bill? I pay your salary.
I've heard, you know, something better to do, nothing happening, so this is what we're spending our money on.
Yeah.
Then
And actually it is, that's exactly what we're spending our money, but to be safe.
Listen,
Yeah.
this is a direct correlation to the residents and the council's concerns. So this is when taxpayers get their money's worth by having an issue, and we address it. And typically those who are cooperative with the speed laws aren't the ones that are complaining to me going, hey, Zach, come on, you know me. It's those who.
So, yeah, clearly we have more work to do on this. I don't think we're gonna solve it tonight, but let's not let it drop. And, don't let us let it drop, is what I'm asking everybody who's here for. Okay, so, if anybody else has something to say about this, please come forward. We haven't finished that. About ordinance number 2016-08.
Absolutely. Edward Hudson, 1218 Ocean Road. I won't repeat everything said by my neighbors already, but in relation to what you're doing with this mid crosswalk, whatever it's called, you need to put more speeding signs. Well, before that, there's one sign on the corner of Ocean Road and Old Mill Road. There's not another sign going eastbound till way past.
You're right, I have to, I'm
crosswalk.
driving down there.
So when people go down that dip, the woman referred to, and when the other gentleman said that sign was up, that it was gone, I've seen 55, so we beat whatever road that was, and I've seen the number of times.
It's one to win.
Yeah, no, it's not something we want, and I just can't fathom how these people could go, 40 is probably close to the average that I see, I'm not out there all day, and our police do a great job, and you can attest, they're pulling people over, but if you're gonna invest the time and money in these crosswalks, and in the community center you spent an hour and a half debating on, which I applaud, you need to address the traffic and the speed. Because if you put mid crosswalks, then when you're walking across, I hate to see what the consequences are gonna be, because I don't know how much you're spending on these crosswalks and how much hundreds of thousands you're spending on the community center, but to buy a couple more speed signs, because if you did a count on it, I'm sure the police know, there's not, between 71 and 35, I'm gonna guess there's 6 signs, 3 each way.
Joe, that's just something you can do.
And that's just not enough.
Just to let you know,
It's
we've
really
already
not.
done the count of all the signs along the road, Borough Road, Ocean Road, I will new signs.
Fantastic.
All right,
So it's in the.
Because, I mean, slow people down, if you put a mid crosswalk, but people, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's
How many in
concern.
that?
I mean, give a mid thing, which is an unexpected, it's not an intersection.
12 added.
Yeah, I mean, I think
8 replaced.
that is clear for us to be loud and clear that, look,
So he's adding 8, he just said, he's adding 12, 8, yeah.
Because
So that's, Ocean, all of Ocean Road, all of Old Mill Road, all of Lowell.
Right. How about if you want to proceeding it on the west side of Old Mill, coming into town,
You live
so
at 25
Wall would have no
sign.
problem letting us put a stop sign. Is there a speed limit sign there?
Won't tell them to put one in.
You can call, that's even better. Yeah. Well, we'll even do it if they'll just let us, you know.
It's a good idea.
yeah.
Just paint the road
I
and
mean,
the
people are
approach
coming
by
off,
some areas.
people coming off 35 are doing 40
miles an hour.
And I tell you, this is continuing.
They need to be
Past
reminded.
the park.
We're
I mean,
reminded.
45 miles an hour is, I'm not even exaggerating, I mean, that's common, all the time. It's really a dangerous situation, especially when you put mid-cross walk that people aren't looking for, it could be disastrous.
Most of us who drive down there, as somebody already said, people get so close behind, you can see what color eyes they
Oh,
have.
I'm next to the Borough, I'm one half turn off Old Mill Road, getting in and out of my driveway is a chore, believe me.
Are you on the north or the south side?
North.
North side?
Yeah, 1218 Ocean. Yeah, getting in and out of my driveway is every day. Rush hour, going to work, come home, weekends, forget summer, it doesn't get any different. So it really doesn't from our perspective. But I think that's just a
All right,
consideration.
thanks, thank you.
All right.
No, if you have something to say, please come forward. I was trying to direct the council towards speaking on a topic so that the voice of the public could be continued and not trying to dissuade you from
I'm agreeing with Ed Hudson. I also have a problem with I'm getting out of my driveway. People will be coming off of 35, going, they see me blocks away, and I'm pulling out, and they continue to go the same fast speed they go. And it's the same way on both sides of the street, and I don't even come up to the intersection where I used to turn. I go all around 71 and up, and I tap my brakes. I start like a block before, because people are right on back of me. I have my blinker on and go in my driveway, and sometimes they're gesturing to me, and they're
And honking their horn.
driving. And I'm like, I'm pointing like, I live here, you know, like, I would like to go in my driveway, but I'm afraid I'm gonna, you know, sometimes be hit from the back or the side, because they're not courteous, they just want to get someplace.
Yeah.
So, that's the only other thing I have to say.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no further hands, can I get a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance number 2016-08?
I'll make that.
I will second.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borba?
Yes.
And now, we need a motion to introduce that ordinance.
I will make that
To
motion.
adopt it, sorry. I thought I had it this time.
You get much faster.
Did we get a motion in a second?
No, we don't.
I
Okay.
did a motion.
I'll second.
All right,
So yeah, we do.
roll call, please.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borba?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Which brings us to the public comment section. This is on agenda items only. So if we haven't already spoken about it and it's on the agenda, please feel free and, well, even if you have spoken about it, I'm not going to prevent you from saying what you already said. So please come forward, address the chair, state your name and address, and your opinion. Oh. Okay. Seeing no hands, can I get a motion to close the public comment section?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borba?
Yes.
All right, that brings us to our mayor and council reports. How about we start with Councilman Merrickin? Do you have a report?
Our new truck is absolutely beautiful. And we're working on still replacing some fire items.
Okay.
To be done. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman Schuler?
Nothing to report.
Councilwoman King?
I just want to mention a couple of things. We have two construction projects going on in town. One is on Wall Road, and the other is over at the intersection of Warren and Old Mill. We did not plan this, to have two construction sites going on at the same time. I know that in some cases, we've got a lot of parents, especially trying to shuffle kids to school and what have you, that this has been kind of cumbersome. The project at Warren and Old Mill, of course, was planned and has been an ongoing thing, and hopefully this will be completed by mid-October. Right now, the Earl Asphalt has finished what they've got to do, and I understand a construction company is there now doing other work because that intersection has to be widened a little bit. Then the electricians will come in and do their work, and like I say, hopefully the lights will be put up within another few weeks, and the project will be done by mid-October. The project on Wall Road resulted because there was a gas leak, and the gas company felt that as long as they had to address that, they might as well go ahead and address the gas line that was on the complete road, and that also includes subsidiaries off of it. like Grieve, Windsor, and some of the others, Nadine and Homestead and what have you. So that project resulted because of that, and unfortunately, the timing of it was really not all that great. So I apologize for all this chaos that's going on in town, but just try to bear with us, and hopefully both of these projects will be completed by mid or end of October. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Corbin?
Excuse me. I just want to compliment Joe May, Jay Delaney, and Janine for this.
Councilman Champion?
I have two things. The first one is, for those who haven't heard, thanks to the efforts of our fire department, I know Casey Williams and Billy Gretz were very involved, but they secured a grant from the Assistant Firefighters Grant Program to replace their breathing apparatus, and it's going to save us about $200,000 that we would have had to spend as taxpayers, as residents, to replace this equipment. So because of their efforts chasing the grant, and I see one fireman in the back that I keep looking at, but we definitely appreciate all the hard work you guys do down there. It's a big win for us. And the other comment I had was, I know that several residents, back to what Councilman King had said about the projects, especially on Wall Road, we know that by their obligation they're paving half the road, and we're aware of the concern about the other half, and they are researching options on how to address that when it's done. So there's no permanent plan right now, but it is being looked into for how we address the whole road, so we don't have half paved in the middle that's one side will deteriorate quicker than the other. So it is being worked on.
I have nothing to start, all right.
All right, I have one thing. We have a seasonal flu clinic at the community center on September 17th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. where you can get your flu and pneumonia shots. There's a flyer that's available if you want more details. $7.6 million bond. We have a letter from the Monmouth County Board of Public Freeholders regarding New Jersey Transportation Trust Fund, and a public notice of the Wall Township Board of Adjustment hearing regarding 2488 Kipling. And I believe that is it for letters and correspondences. We have no ordinance introductions tonight, which brings us to our resolutions. So I will go through these. The first one is Resolution R 2016-139. This is an ordinance that was distributed to the public last week, but it is our salary, our ordinance for the salary for 2016 resolution. Sorry, I said ordinance. So if you haven't already seen that, there's a copy of that in the back. So can I get a motion on that one?
Make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Barrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next resolution is Resolution R 2016-144, a resolution of the Borough Council awarding a contract for the 2016 municipal road improvements to Jeanette Court to Earl Asphalt Company for $94,000. And this is sort of replacing the original plan, which was all of Crosby and Jeanette and Nadine, Norman, something with an N.
I have a question.
But this one is what basically the amount that we were willing to pay on that project, since the Transportation Trust Fund is in some sort of limbo.
So while we're waiting, well, the amount allotted here is $94,000. Mr. Lane, what will that impact, how does that come up to what we figured in the project? Is that going to impact the rest of the project, should the money be freed up from the state? Which I expect it to be sometime before the election.
The quick easy answer is it may. We really won't know until we go out to bid for the remaining portion of the project, which is Crosby Road encompasses the largest portion of the originally planned project. Norman Terrace, my guess would be about the same number as this. So the answer is that we did now change the scope of the project. We were hoping to get some benefit of economy of scale by having a large project that included all three roadways. So we really won't know until we go out to bid for the second part.
So because you're doing a smaller road, it's costing us more than it would under, theoretically, if we did it all. The good news is Jeanette Court is the worst of the three.
It's
So,
absolutely, yeah.
and it needs to be done. The sad thing is because of this holdup,
It's gonna
in
cost us more
politics,
money.
it could cost us more money, and we may have to come up with more money if we're to continue the project when and if it comes, the money's freed up. So we should know that going in.
So will we get that money from the trust fund if we spend it?
Yes, just, just to provide the full picture. And Joe, you may have to help me on this, I don't have the numbers in front of me. The Crosby, Jeanette, Norman Terrace roadway is being partially funded by a DOT grant in the amount of $175,000. We estimated the total cost to be between $250 and $275.
That's with utility work?
With the utility work, correct. And there will be a portion of that that we will fund out of our utility operation.
Right.
So that remainder between 175 and 275 was the amount that we had budgeted for.
That's correct. That's what, the 175 is what we are eligible for from the DOT, the New Jersey Municipal Aid Program, which is now on hold. So again, we won't know for certain until we go out to bid for the revised scope of work.
Well, we can't expect more money. We
That's
can
right.
expect at least
That's
that
right.
funding, if not less.
We budgeted, we were saying $100,000 to spring it next month.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to finish that court, so I recommend to Jay, to spend $100,000, let's spend it on Jeanette Court.
Yeah. So I mean, just to, again, a little bit more background, if you haven't been on Jeanette Court, it really, there's a big, it's a cul-de-sac with it's kind of a donut now because there's a big dirt area in the center and it's paved on the outside, and that's why we are marking it as a priority.
But when the project comes up, I don't want everybody to think that, oh, good, now they're giving us the money, now we can just go spend it like this. We may have to come up with a couple extra bucks to do the project, and we should do it. We should know that.
It's
going in.
unfortunate.
Make that decision.
But yeah,
You know what I mean?
but that is the truth, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, just at the very least, we were literally out to bid for the Crosby project when, as a result of the funding issue with the Transportation Trust Fund, we at first postponed the bid for a period of 3 weeks, and then once it became apparent that the trust fund issue was not going to be quickly resolved, again, Joe's recommendation was, let's at least get Jeanette done. But we incurred extra costs because of that. So absolutely, this, I'm hopeful, I'm cautiously optimistic that it will not bust the budget. But certainly, we expect it will be more expensive doing this in 2 phases as opposed to the one that we originally intended.
It's all about transparency.
Yep. All right, so can I get a motion on that resolution, R 2016-144? Can I get?
I'll second it.
I think, well, we had to do first.
I had
so
Mr.
that
Campbell
counts
as
as
our
a second.
first and Mr. Schuler as our second.
Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King? Yes. Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Warbeck?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next resolution is resolution number R 2016-145, a resolution of the Borough Council requesting the Director of New Jersey's Division of Local Government Services approve an amendment to the borough's 2016 municipal budget. And this change is due to some grants,
Yes,
not
right.
additional costs.
That's correct. Mayor, if I may, this resolution as well as number 146 are interrelated. The first is the resolution that amends our budget. We have been the recipient of a $585,000 grant fund, and I will stress the word grant there, under the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. We've had some previous discussion on this. This actually is money that became available as a result of post-Sandy FEMA funds. And this is the first step, which is to amend our budget to anticipate this grant. The second resolution, 146, as I said, is related. This provides, this is the next step to move forward, which is to engage the services of an engineer, specialized engineering firm for the design and contract administration on the planned construction of the Shore Road and Black Creek sewer pump stations.
Okay.
And I should mention that Resolution 146 provides the $65,000 match. There is a 10% share. This grant, the total project is estimated to be $650,000. We are providing a 10% matching grant from our water sewer utility. For those that were in attendance during our budget session, you will recall that we did specify and provided for that $65,000 fund in our current year budget.
All right, can I get a motion for resolution number 2016-145?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borback?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next resolution is resolution number R 2016-146, a resolution of the Borough Council authorizing a contract with H2M Associates Incorporated for engineering services related to the planned improvements to the Shore Road and Black Creek wastewater pump stations and authorizing an appropriation from the Water Sewer Utility Capital Improvement Fund for the cost of these services.
Make that motion.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borback?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next is a kind of related item. It's more grants. It's resolution number R 2016-147, a resolution of the Borough Council requesting the Director of the New Jersey Division of Local Government Services approve an amendment to the Borough's 2016 municipal budget, and this is for a New Jersey Department of Law and Public Safety Drunk Driving Enforcement Fund grant, and that's what they're both for, yeah.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borback?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next is resolution number R 2016-148, a resolution of the Borough Council requesting the Director of New Jersey's Division of Local Government Services approve an amendment to the borough's 2016 municipal budget for bulletproof vest grant.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borback?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next resolution is resolution number R 2016-149, a resolution of the Borough Council authorizing submission of an application for the Monmouth County Municipal Open Space Grant Funding. And this is for the playground equipment, right?
That's correct.
Talked about before.
By way of background, at our last meeting in August, Borough Engineer Joe May presented the council with the proposed renovations and improvements that included site, specifically parking improvements at the community center and the adjacent playground, as well as the replacement of the existing playground equipment. Based on the results of the comments that the council presented, as well as the public, the plan has been, or the grant application has been revised. The plan will now include the installation of either some type of bolliard or protective barrier between the parking lot and the park facility. And that application now carries an estimated total cost of $175,000, which would be eligible for a 50% match. So we are requesting, this application to the county open space program is requesting 50% of the $175,000 for those planned improvements.
All right, can I get a motion on that?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borback?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next is resolution number R 2016-150, a resolution of the Borough Council approving the person-to-person transfer of an alcoholic beverage control cleanery retail distribution from JP Wines LLC to 71 Central Liquors Incorporated. So this is just transferring a liquor license, but keeping the location in the same place,
I'll
which
make a
is
motion.
yeah. Go ahead.
I'll second it.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borback?
Yes.
And if anybody noted that, I mean, that did include a police investigation. I mean, if anybody asks. All right. Next one is resolution number R 2016-151, a resolution of the Borough Council approving use of the community center for the Devonport Condominium Association.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. American?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borback?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The next resolution is resolution number R 2016-152, a resolution of the Borough Council authorizing release of designated escrow deposits.
Make the motion. Second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borba?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And our last resolution before we get to the voice of the public is resolution number R 2016-153, a resolution of the Borough Council approving payment of the itemized claims as set forth on the September 9th, 2016 bill list.
Make that motion.
Second.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borba?
Yes.
That brings us to the portion of the meeting for public comment on anything. Doesn't have to be on the agenda or on the items that we've introduced tonight. It can be about anything. If anybody has anything to say about anything, please approach the dais and address the chair, state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Diane Hudson, 27 Magnolia Drive. I happen to be Ed's mother, who lives on Ocean Road, and I often go over there and do weeding. When I'm down by the sidewalk, I think I'm on the Indianapolis 500. And I want to say the difference between Wall Road, when people come off Old Mill Road, it's already 25. They make a left on Wall Road and go down. There are 4 signs on Wall Road that say 25 miles an hour. When people are coming on Ocean Road from 40 miles an hour onto Ocean Road from 35, there's no signage at all between 35 and Old Mill Road. I know it's probably a wall problem, but there's no signage at all. When you get to Old Mill Road, yes, it does say 25. There are 3 between Old Mill and 71.
Yeah,
Maybe we should put another one by the tennis courts. I don't know.
I think it was stated earlier that our Department of Public Works Supervisor is planning on putting up multiple new signs. He has a pretty good working relationship with the Department of Public Works from Wall, and I think
Okay.
even if it takes us giving Wall a sign, we can get one put up there.
Okay.
Mr. May, you said you would be willing to call Wall, right? Ask engineer if they would put some on their side?
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, but it's how we want to know. when
No,
it's
I think
above
it's
35.
a very good
What is
point,
the
and it
speed
needs to be
limit?
done. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Good point.
Seeing no further hands, can I get a motion to close the voice of the public?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borba?
Yes.
Would anybody like to make a motion? to
I have
adjourn?
that motion.
Second.
All right, can I get one more roll call, and then we'll finish it?
Mr. Campion?
Yes.
Mrs. King?
Yes.
Mr. Herner?
Yes.
Mr. Merrickin?
Yes.
Mr. Schuler?
Yes.
Mr. Borba?
Yes.
Thank you all.